Repositories are logical storage locations for all your content, whether they're digital assets or structured content. A repository can be used to manage all assets in one place. From the Assets UI within Oracle Content Management, repositories are available from the top left side, while the contents of these repositories are viewable in the right-hand side. Similarly, from the Administrative UI, you can define and configure repositories, including asset types, taxonomies, publishing channels, and associated workflows by asset types. Next up, localization policies allow you to define how the content can actually be translated within your repository and within your channels. They're defined from the same administration screen. You can define however many optional languages you need. You can also specify what is the default language and also what are the required languages. Publishing channels is where content actually gets published. They can correspond to devices or other applications where you publish the content. They typically have a publishing policy associated, so you can decide if it's approved or not approved, or if it's a public and secure. All of these have a one-to-one type of relationship, and you can have however many channels you want in a repository. Now, this is configured from the same content management screen, administration, specifically the publishing channel area, and here you can define if it's public or secure, if only approved content is published, or all content, and you can associate a localization policy. Additionally, you also have access to API information if you want to deliver that content headlessly. Next up, asset types give you the possibility of structuring content and providing some additional metadata. This content can be structured in the form of content items, and you can have however many content items and content types you want, or digital custom content types, again, with however many content types you would need for custom digital assets. These between themselves, of course, have an end-to-end type of relationship, and each of them support translations, and all of these are collectively named assets. Now, asset types within the Oracle Content Management UI can be created via a simple drag and drop of attributes, or starting from custom digital assets by defining the extensions of the digital assets that you want supported and also the attributes. Similarly, for videos, you can do the same approach, only change extensions and change attributes as well. Now, in the Assets UI that allows you to create this content, that same content items become filters and allow you to query that content and potentially view all the actual values of those content items. If, for example, I'd like to go with a product image and open that up, I can open up the image and also inspect some of the attributes of the image directly from the Oracle Content Management UI. Similarly, I can perform translations of that content. For example, if I want to translate a blog, all I need to do is automate that translation, create a translation job, then import the respective translation files. Finally, in the Assets panel, if I go back, I can see all of the languages for that respective blog item as part of the dropdown, and I can even inspect the item to manage languages and see that the items have been automatically translated. Finally, let's also look at collections. Collections are a way for you to subdivide your repository into groups of content that you can easily share and collaborate on. They can have an end-to-end type of relationship with assets, and they can be however many are necessary for a repository. Of course, putting assets into collections is not mandatory, and you can put assets directly in the repository if you need to. Now, in the Assets UI, collections are visible as a filter on the left-hand side, and you can filter to just get to one set of content that you want to use. And similarly, from the top right side, you can see and create additional collections, and you can also add or remove members to those collections. Now let's talk a bit about taxonomies. Taxonomies are a way for you to hierarchically organize and categorize your content within a repository. Any content item can go into any taxonomy category, and of course, any taxonomy category can be used within any repository. Now, within the Oracle Content Management UI, taxonomies are defined using simple drag and drop WYSIWYG type of tooling for you to define that structure and hierarchy. And they then, within the Assets panel, become filters. So any content that is categorized can be filtered by that taxonomy category. You see in this case, for example, for people for blog items. And of course, each content item I can actually further categorize and even use our machine learning to suggest categories ourselves, or do that type of addition of categories manually from within the platform. Let's also talk a bit about workflows. Workflows within Oracle Content Management allow you to action multi-step complex workflows for approving content and documents. They are hosted through Oracle Integration Cloud, and there's an end-to-end type of relationship with repositories. In other words, you can use whatever and however many workflows you want with however many repositories you want. Within the administrative UI in Oracle Content Management, workflows appear as individual objects and can be registered from the integrated Oracle Integration Cloud instance, which also brings in the workflow roles, allowing for fine-grained security control over who can execute each step of the workflow or who has access to the overall workflow object. Within the Assets UI in Oracle Content Management, out-of-the-box filters are provided for status of workflows, allowing you to filter, for example, for draft items and submit them to workflow through a dedicated side panel available in the sidebar. Users can select the workflow they want to submit the item to and action the same workflow directly from the same UI, allowing you to approve or reject the content and also provide some comments for that content as you actually approve it. Once approved, the content is reflected and there's also an audit trail.